Welcome to the Tim Booker Book Sharing channel. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our updates. Let's explore the world of books together.
The book I'm going to interpret for you today is called Richer, Wiser, Happier, and the subtitle is How the World's Greatest Investors Win in Markets and Life. The author of this book is a British journalist named William Green. He has been writing for well-known magazines such as Forbes, Money, Fortune, and Time for many years, and has interviewed more than 40 legendary figures in the investment world over a period of 25 years. Although he has interviewed many successful investors, there are not many who he truly believes have wealth, wisdom, and happiness at the same time, so this book only selects those who he truly admires. There are indeed some names in it that you may be very familiar with, such as Buffett, Munger, Peter Lynch, and the father of index funds, John Bogle, and so on. But I think the best-looking part of this book is not from these people. Maybe because the stories of these people have been dug up almost. I think the most touching ones are the stories of some people who are not so famous. These people get rich in a low-key way, live a contented life, and have their own persistence. Their life path may be more valuable to us than those of the most famous people. So these people will also be the focus of our story today. In addition, after reading this book, I also found an interesting point. That is, the people selected by the author are mostly value investors. I don't know if this is because the author himself prefers value investing, or because compared with other investment methods such as quantitative investment, the concepts in value investing can indeed be transferred to life more, providing more nourishment to life. I can't draw a conclusion on this. Perhaps after listening to today's interpretation, you will have your own answer. Okay, let's move on to this book and listen to how the world's top investors make themselves richer, wiser, and happier. 1. The story of Pable. The first person we're going to look at is an Indian guy named Mohnish Pabrai. He's a very low-profile, self-made billionaire investor. He's not well known outside his circle, but the author, who has met a lot of people, thinks he's one of the wisest people he's ever met. That's why he put him in the first chapter of the book. At the beginning of the story, the author went with Pabrai to visit 40 Indian teenage girls who were supported by Pabrai's charitable foundation. Pabrai asked the girls a question, saying that his 18-year-old daughter had saved $4,800, and if this money increased by 15% every year for the next 60 years, what would happen? You should know that Pable wants to teach these girls the effect of compound interest as soon as you hear this question. But the girls were not mentally prepared, so when they figured out that the final $4,800 would turn into $21 million, there was an exclamation in the classroom. Pable told the girls that the man who first made him feel the power of compound interest was his hero, Warren Buffett. In 1994, Pabrai, who was in his 20s, saw Buffett's investment performance in a book for the first time. He had an annualized investment return of 31% for 44 consecutive years since he was 20 years old. This surprised Pabrai very much, because it meant that, calculated at compound interest, Buffett's $1 investment in 1950 had become $144,500 by 1994. Since then, Pabrai has set himself a game challenge in his life, called Turn $1 million into $1 billion in 30 years. So how did he do? The answer is very well. From 1995 to 1999, he turned $1 million into $10 million, and then he opened a fund. From 2000 to 2018, the hedge fund he ran returned 1,204%, compared with a 159% return for the broader U.S. stock market over the same period. If you had invested $100,000 in his fund in July 1999, it would have been worth nearly $1.83 million by March 2018, after fees. Why could he achieve such results? His secret is very straightforward, just 2 words: imitate. Imitate whom? Imitate the person who prompted him to start this game, Buffett. He did not imitate superficially, but in the author's words, imitate madly and imitate to the bone marrow. At first, Pabrai read everything he could find about Buffett, including Buffett's letters to shareholders and various Buffett biographies. Then, he began attending Buffett's company's, Berkshire, annual shareholder meeting every year, like a pilgrimage. Then, when he made some money, he photographed the opportunity to have lunch with Buffett, and in this way established a personal connection with Buffett. Then, through Buffett, he also became a friend of Munger. Pabrai's imitation of Buffett is not just about borrowing his basic value investment methods, such as finding value traps, growing with excellent companies, and not touching things outside his circle of competence. Of course, these are the iron laws he practices, but in his opinion, it is far from enough. His imitation of Buffett goes into great detail. And not only imitate Buffett, but also imitate Buffett's old partner Munger. As long as he thinks it is useful to him, he will use it without hesitation. For example, Pabrai's fund does not hold any U.S. stocks. Why? Because Munger said that investing is like fishing. People should go where the fish are. In the US fishing pond is too competitive. There are no big fish to catch anymore. So he took his harpoon and went to China, India, and South Korea. Also, when he first set up his fund, he imitated every detail of Buffett's partnership model. For example, Buffett does not charge an annual management fee, but only a performance fee. If the rate of return does not exceed 6%, he will not charge a penny. If the rate of return exceeds 6%, he will charge 25% of the excess. Pable also copied this practice completely. Coincidentally, this charging structure was not originally created by Buffett, but was learned from Graham. In fact, Buffett himself strongly advocates imitation. Most of his value investment methods are learned from Graham, and then he takes the essence and discards the dross to form his own set of methods. Back to Pable. He had more to emulate once he had established a personal connection with Buffett and Munger. For example, he noticed that Buffett had a box on his desk labeled "Too Hard." It contained reports from companies that Buffett couldn't understand, couldn't see where the cash was coming from now or how much cash they were likely to generate in the next few years. So Pable put a box on his own desk, labeled "Too Hard," to remind himself to resist the temptation to invest in such companies. Also, when having lunch with Buffett, Buffett once told him, "When you are with someone who is better than you, you will improve without knowing it." Pable remembered it. After that, every time he met someone for the first time, he would evaluate the person and ask himself, will dealing with this person make me better or worse? If the answer is worse, then he will not contact this person again. Also, Buffett once showed Pable his calendar, which was mostly empty. So Pable also tried to reduce his schedule. He usually goes to the office after 10 a.m. without any schedule. Around 11 a.m., his assistant will bring him printed emails, and he will imitate Munger and write short replies directly on the paper. In addition, like Buffett and Munger, Pable spends most of his day reading and thinking. He takes a nap in the afternoon and then continues to read, think, and stay up late at night. He thinks that the philosopher Pascal's words make a lot of sense. All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. The author has known Pable for many years, and as a journalist, he has long wanted to write Pable's story. But why didn't he start writing earlier? Because he felt that almost every important idea in Pable's investment career came from imitation. So how could he write something new when he wrote it? But later, he realized that this was actually the key. Pable's competitive advantage lies in this. He doesn't care if others think he lacks creativity and originality, he cares about what ideas work. Pable has always regarded his life as a game related to probability. How can he improve the probability of winning? Instead of spending time designing a new algorithm, he focused on the players with the strongest gaming skills and the best playing skills, and directly absorbed their algorithms. Let the roads that others have taken and the pits they have stepped on become his nourishment. Including, you may be curious about how he earned the initial $1 million investment principal. In fact, it is also based on imitation. When he started his business, he always kept observing the situation inside and outside the industry. Once he saw someone making a good move, he forced himself to do the same. This strategy seems simple, but the author found that not many people can do it in reality. Why? Pable gave 3 reasons. First, people tend to think that they are the most correct. Once they have an idea, it is difficult to accept other good ideas. Second, in Pable's words, they are not as cheeky as me, they have stronger self-esteem. To become an excellent imitator, you must let go of your self-esteem. But many people can't let go. Also, many people, when they find a good idea, they will try it half-heartedly, like a snail, touching it and then shrinking back. But Pable thinks that this is not right. If you want to imitate, you have to devote yourself wholeheartedly, let your brain, muscles, and every part of your body be filled with this idea, and absorb every important detail and every drop of absorbable nutrients as much as possible. This is the key to his actions. So how can you become richer, wiser, and happier? Pable's method is to set different game challenges for yourself, and then in each game, learn from the experience of the winners and constantly imitate their best practices. And why is Pable's story placed in the first chapter of the book? Because it was he who inspired the author to bring together the effective gameplay collected in the past, so that more people who want to win can follow suit. 2. Nick's story. Let's listen to another person's story. This is a British man named Nick Sleep. Nick's experience is very special. He used to be a landscape designer, and later he accidentally entered a fund company to do investment analysis, and unexpectedly found that he was very suitable for this line of work. In 2001, he and his friends created a fund. Then in the next 13 years, the fund's return rate was as high as 921.1%, which was 800 percentage points higher than the benchmark index. In other words, if you invested $1 million in their fund at the beginning, you would get $10.21 million after 13 years. Not only that, Nick is also a hidden celebrity. He is very low-key, and few people outside the investment circle know him, but he is very famous in the circle. Many wealthy people give him their money to manage. When the author interviewed other investment tycoons, several of them recommended Nick. Among them is Pable, whom we just mentioned. However, Nick has never liked to promote himself, so the author got to know his complete story after contacting Nick for several years. Nick also had something he regarded as an iron law in his heart. However, it didn't come from a person, but from a book, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, which I have interpreted for you before. You may remember that the most important philosophical concept in that book is good quality. Good quality, quality of quality. What is good quality? We can roughly understand it as a kind of pursuit of good in both material and spiritual aspects. Pirsig, the author of Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, believes that even the most ordinary work can hone people and reflect whether a person has good quality. He wrote that whether you're repairing chairs, sewing clothes, or sharpening knives, you can do it beautifully or ugly. This idea had a great impact on Nick. He read this book when he was 20 years old, and then he has been pursuing good quality in his life and career, including his investment later. He told the author that he really wanted to do everything with high quality, because that's the only way he could feel satisfied and peaceful in his heart. And the fund he later founded with his friends was also regarded by him as a laboratory to explore how to pursue good quality in investment. When the fund was established, they determined that the goal was not to put money in their own pockets by charging high fees and expanding the scale, but to put the interests of investors first. So they only charge a low management fee that can cover the cost, which is much lower than the usual 1% or 2%. Moreover, if the annualized rate of return of the fund does not reach 6%, they will not charge any money. Nick explained the aim of their fund to his children like this: "We want to turn a pound into 10 pounds. In other words, they want to generate superior long-term returns for their investors. It is also because of this goal that Nick has always refused to adopt many strategies commonly used by funds to rush short-term performance. For example, leveraging, shorting, speculating on options and futures, chasing popular short-term transactions, etc. Nick also has a very special approach, which is to ignore short-term messages that may distract them. He said that information is like food. It has a shelf life. Some are particularly perishable, and some have a long shelf life. Shelf life is a very valuable screening criterion. For example, they never pay attention to the speculation about the short-term impact of certain events on asset prices and financial news reports, nor do they immediately read the various forecasts and suggestions of Wall Street financial institutions. They have a method, which is to pile up those research reports and read them a month later, and they will find that most of them are rumors, nonsense, and worthless. There is also a Bloomberg terminal in their office, which displays real-time data and financial news. But they deliberately put it on a particularly short table. Why? Because it will be very difficult for you to read it, and you will have a backache after reading it for 2 minutes, so you won't read it. They are willing to ignore these short-term noises because they want to have enough time to think quietly and find those high-quality companies that can really bring long-term returns. How to find it? They read the annual report until they are exhausted. They visit the company tirelessly. Later they found that there is a kind of enterprise with a very long success shelf life. They named the business model of this kind of enterprise shared economy of scale. What does that mean? Let's talk about the company that first led them to discover this model, Costco Wholesale. You know, the discount retailer that you pay a membership fee to shop at. Costco marks up its merchandise by no more than 15% over cost, whereas a typical grocery store might mark up its merchandise by 30%. Customers pay $45 a year for the privilege of shopping at Costco and getting these low prices, and they don't have to comparison shop. So Costco gets a lot of repeat business. And the more customers it gets, the more scale it has, the more leverage it has with its suppliers, the lower its costs are. And the lower its costs are, the lower it can mark up its prices, and the more customers it gets. It's a virtuous cycle. That's what it means to share the benefits of scale with your customers. That's why Nick calls it shared scale economics. Later, in the process of studying the financial statements of different companies, they found that Walmart, Dell Computer, Southwest Airlines, and Tesco. These companies have also taken a similar path. Later, they invested in Amazon, because they found that Amazon is the ultimate practitioner of sharing economies of scale in the internet age. In 2005, Amazon launched the Super Membership system. After the members paid the annual fee, they provided the members with 2 days of free delivery service. Later, they also provided members with free movies, TV shows, unlimited photo storage, and other benefits. This enhanced customer loyalty and encouraged customers to spend more. Nick realized that Amazon suddenly became an accelerated version of Costco. Bezos followed the path of the predecessors of the sharing economy of scale, and the internet made this classic strategy easier to implement. Nick felt that enterprises like these were essentially good quality enterprises, which were in line with the good quality concept he had always pursued. Generally speaking, when an enterprise grows in size, the main beneficiary is the enterprise itself. However, this type of good quality enterprise is willing to share the benefits of its own expansion with customers. This also makes scale one of its advantages, rather than a burden. The pursuit of good quality eventually led Nick to these good quality enterprises. These enterprises have also become the objects of their long-term holdings. Renowned management guru Ram Charan once put forward a point of view, saying that if an enterprise wants to keep growing, it must ensure that its performance growth is tied to the growth of its users. And whether it is from the fund managed by Nick itself, or from the investment targets they choose, we can actually clearly feel this. 3. The application of investment mentality in life. Okay, before we mainly talked about two little-known top investors, but the focus was still on how their philosophies are used in work and investment. But in fact, there are many philosophies of top investors that can also be applied to life. For example, Nick, who we mentioned earlier, likes to use a goal analysis method when analyzing companies and meeting with CEOs. That is, first figure out what the company wants to achieve in the long run, such as in 10 or 20 years. Then, what does management need to do now to achieve the goal? What factors will prevent them from achieving their goals? This way of thinking is called goal analysis method. Nick thinks that the goal analysis method is also a practical tool in life. For example, if your goal is to stay healthy in old age, then you can deduce that in order to increase the probability of achieving your goal, you need to invest in things like nutrition, exercise, stress relief, and physical examinations. Also, if you want your family and friends to feel better about you, you can imagine a final picture of them attending your funeral and ask yourself what you need to do now so that they will cherish the time they spent with you, or what you have done that will make them not miss you at all. In this way, first clarify the ultimate goal, and then deduce what you should and should not do, which is the goal analysis method. Also, we said at the beginning that because the author himself is more in favor of value investing, most of his interviewees are value investors. We often put value investing together with words like long-termism and compound interest, but few people may have thought about how to use them to guide life besides investing. The book talks about a man named Tom Gaynor, who was also very good at investing. However, the author focuses not on his investment skills, but on how he applies the compound interest effect and long-termism to his life. His concept can be summarized in 8 words: generally correct, not perfect. Gaynor's story is like this. After he started investing, his weight gradually increased and finally exceeded 90 kilograms. So he decided to start losing weight. He announced to his friends that in the next 10 years, he would lose 0.45 kilograms each year. Yes, you heard it right. Losing less than a caddy a year. Is this also a goal? But Gaynor had his reasons. Studies show that the average American male gains between 1 and 2 pounds a year from early adulthood to middle age. Gaynor knew that small advantages or disadvantages compounded over time. If someone else gained a little bit of weight and he lost a little bit of weight, even if it was just a few pounds a year, it would make a big difference over a decade. So he began to change some unhealthy habits. The style was also moderate, gradual, and did not seek perfection. He began to increase the proportion of vegetables and fish in his diet and reduce the proportion of sweets, but he did not completely give up sweets. He still ate about 20 donuts each year. In terms of exercise, he started by jogging for only 5 minutes a day, then increased it by 5 minutes each week, and stopped when he reached half an hour. Such a strategy is not obvious at first, but it is easy to stick to. If you stick to it, significant changes will gradually occur. More than 5 years later, Gaynor still runs 5 times a week. The author has interviewed him several times in the past 5 years. Each time the author's own weight is heavier than the last time, and Gaynor's weight is lighter than the last time. In 2017, Gaynor's weight dropped to 88 kilograms, and his overall physical condition looked much better than the author's. Whether in life or in investment, Gaynor believes in one thing: great victories are often the result of continuous small progress and long-term accumulation, just like the compound interest effect. His investment performance is also accumulated in this way. He has a very strong sense of prevention. For some companies that he thinks are good but not completely sure, he will buy some stocks first, and then investigate for a period of time, and judge that he can add more positions. He said, "My secret is to accumulate bit by bit. It is the key to do better than the previous day every day, and to make continuous progress." Apart from the hidden bigwigs in the investment circle, such as Gaynor, Nick, and Pable, the author also interviewed many world-renowned investors, such as Munger, Buffett, Thorpe, Templeton, and so on. You may have heard a lot about these people's investment philosophies. We have also interpreted many books related to them for you. So today, I will pick some of their philosophies that can be transferred to life and share them with you. First is Buffett's proposal, the inner scorecard. Buffett is a person who lives almost entirely according to his own principles and preferences. He doesn't care how others view him, doesn't care about others' doubts about some of his investment operations, doesn't care about the voices that have often appeared in recent years that the Buffett era is over, and doesn't hide the fact that he likes to play cards, likes to eat junk food in the eyes of others, and so on. Buffett said that he and Munger always use the inner scorecard to measure themselves. They never worry about how others evaluate themselves. They just want to do their best to meet their inner standards. Does this help them live longer? I don't know. But it does make life happier and easier. Buffett said that one way to tell if you live by external or internal standards is to ask yourself this question. Would I rather be the world's worst but best loved lover in the public eye, or the world's best but worst loved lover in the public eye? Apart from Buffett, the author also found that many famous investors, such as Templeton and George Soros, share this trait. They are willing to be alone, willing to hold a position that others do not favor, and only obey their inner voice. For example, the investor Templeton did not look at the best companies, but instead used a contrarian strategy to study stocks in troubled industries and markets around the world, studying the assets that had performed the worst in the past 5 years, and then assessing whether the reasons for them were temporary or permanent. If it was temporary, then it was his time to enter the market. This maverick also permeated his life, and sometimes made others feel that his behavior was a bit strange. For example, when the author interviewed Templeton that year, he saw the 85-year-old man walking in the sea, only showing his head, wearing a hat and a mask, walking with difficulty under the resistance of the water. The author thought it was funny. But who cares what he thinks? Templeton himself is very happy. That's enough. He walks like this for 45 minutes every day, never caring what people on the beach think of him. Let's talk about another tactic from a top investor, called welcoming mistakes. According to Templeton's calculations, he made at least 500,000 investment decisions during his career. Over the years, he kept detailed records of his stock buying and selling recommendations to clients. It turned out that about a third of his recommendations were ill-advised. He also looked at the decision-making accuracy of many other investors and concluded that even the best investors should realize that no matter how hard they try, it is difficult for them to make more than 2/3 of their decisions correctly. And other decisions in our life are not easier than investment decisions. So this means that when we make a decision, we'd better remind ourselves that there is at least a 1/3 probability that the decision is wrong. This can also help us overcome the human nature mentioned above. That is, after having an idea, we can't listen to other information. You can even put a note on your desk to remind yourself, why am I always right? Why am I right every time? You may still remember that one of Munger's thinking habits is to deny himself. No matter how deeply convinced an idea is, Munger will try to find evidence to the contrary. He believes that if you can't figure out how to prove that one of your views is wrong, you don't really have this view. Not only that, in this book today, I also saw that every time Munger found himself wrong, he didn't feel guilty or angry, but happy. Whenever he successfully overthrew a deep-rooted idea of his, he would cheer for himself. Because he sees this process as a process of gradually eliminating ignorance and becoming wiser. He even said, in any year, if you don't overthrow even one of your favorite ideas, it may be a wasted year. In other words, in life, an effective way to test your progress is to ask yourself, in the past month, quarter, or year, what views have you overturned? In this way, being able to welcome your own mistakes, and even being able to regard finding mistakes as an achievement, is an inestimable advantage. Okay, above, that is the key content in this book that I want to share with you. Finally, I have one more thing to add. The last chapter of this book is called Beyond Wealth, which talks about how money is important, but it is not the fundamental element of a rich life. This is also my feeling after reading this book. The people mentioned in the book are wealthy, but this is not only measured from the perspective of money, but also because they have kept what they really care about. For example, Pable, he sees life as a game, and sees wealth goals as a challenge in the game. So what he cares most about is the joy of winning over opponents and achieving challenges. After achieving his wealth goals, he followed Buffett's example and donated most of his money to charity. And Nick. Some people may feel that Nick always talks about his pursuit of good quality. Is it a bit hypocritical? But he said it himself. When you were 80 years old, looking back on the past, how do you feel when you treat your customers fairly, work hard all your life, and do charity rationally? Doesn't it feel better than owning 4 houses and an airplane? From this sentence, we can also feel what he really cares about. The book also tells a story. Once, a TV reporter asked musician Bob Marley, "Are you a rich man?" Marley asked, "What do you mean by rich?" The reporter explained, "Do you have a lot of property? Do you have a lot of deposits in the bank?" Marley asked back, Can property make you rich? I don't have that kind of wealth. My wealth is my life. So how can we maximize our wealth in life? Behind this is actually a question of trade-offs. The author believes that all the stories of these top investors are actually reminding us that we need to be keenly aware of what we are willing to sacrifice for money and what we are not willing to sacrifice, such as your relationship with family and friends, your talents and ambitions, those valuable experiences that have nothing to do with material things, or those concepts and beliefs that you always believe in, etc. Every choice in life is a step in the optimization problem, and you need to make trade-offs with the balance in your heart. The last person the book tells us about is Van den Berg. He was a lucky survivor of the Holocaust and World War II and later became a wealthy man. He often wondered, why did I survive? Was it just luck? He didn't think so. He always felt that he survived because he had a mission. So he felt that the main value of his life was to help others and make their lives better. In the filing cabinet in his office, he keeps a huge collection of letters written to him by many of the people he has helped. He says that these are his most valuable possessions. He could lose all his money, but he could still say, I have not lived in vain. Look at all the lives that have been changed because of me. At the end, he points to the stacks of letters and tells the writer, I will never be bankrupt, because these are my bank accounts. So what will you put into your life bank account? Today's book, we will talk about it here. Congratulations, you have finished listening to another book.
Please subscribe to the Tim Booker channel, like, and share this valuable knowledge with your friends. Let's combine wisdom and practice, achieve our financial goals, and create a better future together. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.